So let's dive into today's call. I'm very excited about today's call. What I want to talk about are desires, okay? Desires in general, desires in specific, and basically bridging the gap between desire and reality. There's always a gap. For some reason, our deepest dreams and wishes never seem to come to fruition, okay? They always stay in our minds. So let's talk about how we bridge that gap today, okay? Now, I'm at a point in my life, very cool point right now, where the future that I've always envisioned and this fantasy I've always built in my head, it's starting to come true. And it's very cool seeing that I'm actually bridging that gap. So I've kind of been obsessed with desire lately. So I really want to go in depth with it with you guys, okay? And I learned a lot of these concepts I'm going to talk about from a life coach called Mel Robbins, I believe that's her name. I just want to give her credit. But lots of cool stuff to go over. So first and foremost, okay, in order to talk about desire, you need to have an idea of what your desires are. Okay, so take a second and just really quickly, what are some of the desires in your head? You know, weight loss, health, family, relationships, work. Like, what are the first ones that pop into your head? Okay, what do you desire out of life? Like maximal fantasy desires, okay? And here's a hint to know if you're on the right track, okay? It doesn't sound good out loud. Okay, if you say your desire out loud, it doesn't necessarily sound good. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is, usually when we're saying what we want or we're telling somebody about what we want, we usually filter it through one or a couple different filters, right? Because we don't want to be judged or we want it to sound good. Okay, so first and foremost, you know you've got a true deep desire if you wouldn't want to share it with everybody because it doesn't sound too good and you'd think people would judge you for it. Right? So an example would be, I want to be healthy versus I want to lose weight because I want to feel sexy and have better sex with my husband, right? I believe the second one more than I believe the first one. The first one's pretty vague and I don't believe you and that's not enough to motivate you to keep going, right? So that's what I mean. The second one, not necessarily you don't want to share that with everybody, right? May sound superficial, may sound insignificant. I don't care. A desire is a desire. You do not have to justify it to me, but you have to be honest with yourself, at least. Okay, so first and foremost, your desire. Put it in the comments if you want, keep it to yourself, but it has to be something that you necessarily or not necessarily would feel comfortable sharing. Okay, so that's the first thing, this desire, the illicit desire. Okay, now, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being that ultimate fantasy, whatever that top desire is, sex related, life related, career related, the house you want to own one day, that you want to live in Bali, like I don't care, whatever that top desire is, that's a 10 out of 10. Okay, being honest with yourself, if you found the right desire, where would you lie on that scale right now? 10 being full fantasy, where would you say you are right now? Put it in the comments. Here's another hint. It's guaranteed it's not a 10, guaranteed it's not a 9, guaranteed it's not an 8. No way. No way. And here's why. Because your body, I've said this many times before, your body is a symptom of your lifestyle, right? What you do day in and day out will show up on your body. So your body is a side effect. So here's the thing. If you still have an unhealthy body, or maybe not necessarily, pure unhealthy, but you still have excess fat on your body, okay, that means there's still a side effect happening, which means something's not 100% yet in your lifestyle, right? So here's the thing. If you set a high number, it either means you're lying to yourself or you're selling yourself short. Either or. You're lying to yourself or you're selling yourself short. Because if you desired big enough, and if you had that big enough dream, you're not there yet. 100% not there yet. And don't sell yourself short, because we could usually even take it one step further with our desires. Okay, we have this bad habit, especially as women, to push our desires down, right? We have a bad habit to push our desires down. And why do we do that? Because for a long time, and kind of what we're trained to do, is be nurturers, right? We put everybody else first, we put ourselves last, right? Everybody else needs to be fed, taken care of, checked in on, but not us, right? We're last. And so what ends up happening is that we start to settle, right? We settle for, me time once a month instead of once a week. We settle for maybe our kids talking back to us and not appreciating us. Like we start to settle for these things, right? And so in order to not feel bad about settling, and in order to not drive yourself insane and feeling inadequate about settling, what do? We say, I'm fine. It's fine. This is good enough. It's good enough, right? That's what we say to ourselves, right? Oh, no, it's fine. You know, I don't really want those. If it happens, great. If not, I'm fine, right? But if you really were fine, why are you even fantasizing in the first place? Why are you even capable of picturing that better? Does that make sense, ladies? If you were truly fine, why would we even think of leveling up to that fantasy? It's there for a reason. It's a true desire. Don't ignore it, okay? You are either lying to yourself about what you want, or probably you're just selling yourself short after years of getting let down and disappointment, which is probably where most of you are right now. So we have to, number one, in terms of our desires and bridging the gap between desire and reality of those crazy fantasies you're all thinking of right now. If only I could read your minds, the things I would hear, I'm sure. So to bridge that gap, you have to stop settling for good enough. Good enough is not good enough anymore, especially for a fit queen. Can we agree? You deserve better than good enough. Maybe the old you was blind to the possibilities, the potential, and your capabilities, your potential, right? Maybe the old you didn't know any better, but now that the blinders are off, you cannot hide behind the lazy word and the easy word of fine or good enough. Fair? Making sense so far? Yes? And here's why, okay? Because this is a crazy statistics. What do you think the odds of you actually becoming a human being are? Out of every single thing, organism, cell, what are the odds of you actually being created into a human being? Does anybody have any idea? Have you heard that statistic before? It's literally unfathomable. The odds of you being turned into a human and sitting here today is 1 in 400 trillion. I can't even fathom that. You are here. It is a complete miracle. It is by chance. It is by luck that everything aligned 400 trillion to 1 and you ended up here. That's a miracle. That's a blessing. So good enough is not good enough when we look at those odds, right? Not good enough. Take advantage. Be grateful for this opportunity of just being a human being, because you could have ended up a banana or something, right? So that's why fine and good enough is not good enough anymore. Okay, so when you ever catch yourself fantasizing or setting goals or dreaming, okay, it needs to be something that you, number one, take the filters off of, right? So we're not filtering it to make it sound good. Be honest. There's nothing wrong with desiring what you desire. Who am I to judge? So be honest with what you desire, okay? Don't filter it. And you have to not talk about it like it's fine. If it's a desire, it's worth going after. Doesn't matter how crazy it is. Doesn't matter, okay? If you thought of it, it means you want it. Don't trick yourself into believing you don't want it just so you don't have to do the work for it. All right, fit queens enter this new level of let's put in the work. Let's do what most women will never even think of doing. That's where we are right now. Okay, so here's the thing. So like I said, you have to take advantage of this crazy situation you've been thrown into as a human being. Okay, and the funny thing is this, right? When you were younger, you have time, but you don't have money and you don't have wisdom, right? When you're middle-aged, you have money, you have wisdom, but you don't have time because you usually have your family to take care of, your career, right? And then when you're older, you have time, or no, you don't have time. You don't have much time left. You got the money and the wisdom, but you don't have much time left. So it doesn't matter when you look at it, how you cut it, some stage in life, you'll be missing something, right? You're always gonna be missing something. So we can't wait. There will always be an excuse as to why you don't go after what you want. Always. You know, you can't wait till life slows down. You can't wait till life gets better. There'll always be something missing. So you have to take advantage and pursue your desire now, right? If you are putting your desires off or you're talking yourself out of your goals, it's because you're settling for good enough. Some people want to settle for good enough, but I don't. Good enough is not good enough. I don't want to take it. I don't want to, this gift of 400 trillion to one. I don't want to spit on it. You get one life, so don't go through it blindly here. So, like I said, young, middle-aged, old, there's always going to be something that's holding you back, okay? And now, knowing that, there's no excuse as to why you can't pursue things now, right? And so let's talk about how do we actually pursue things, okay? So you need something called activation energy, okay? And activation energy is like this, okay? Activation energy is like the beginning push to do anything, right? Activation energy is standing out of bed, right? Once you're standing out of bed, it's easy to go through your morning routine. It's not hard to wake up once you get out of bed. The hardest part of waking up is what? Getting out of your warm bed, right? Activation energy would be, getting your foot off the ground in a bike and getting the wheels going for the first time. The hardest part is getting the balance and then pushing. Once you're going, you're in the rhythm, right? So activation energy is the initial push you need to do something, right? Getting started is always the hardest part, right? Can we agree? Because guess what? Like I say a million times, you already know what you need to be doing, but you don't do it. For some reason, you just don't do it, right? It's the activation energy that bridges the gap, right? So just getting started, that initial push in the beginning is what gets you started and bridges that gap, okay? And now here's the thing that's important to learn in order to find your activation energy, okay? And that thing is this. Anything in your life right now that you want to change, this is the big secret. You will never feel like changing it. Take that in. Anything that you want to change, you are never going to feel like actually changing it. Is this making sense, ladies? Big secret here. You're never actually going to want to change anything that you want to change. You're never going to feel like it. You're not going to be motivated to do it. You're not going to be excited to do it. Yes, you're going to enjoy the process. Yes, you'll have moments of excitement and motivation. It'll come in spurts. But as a whole, if there's changes that need to happen in your life, you will not feel like making those changes. Why? Because that's uncomfortable. What's comfortable? The same, the known, the autopilot that we've lived on. Day in and day out autopilot of our habits, right? So here's the thing. If you're never going to feel like changing, what are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? I'm telling you right now, if you want to lose weight, you're not going to always feel like eating the head of broccoli instead of the cupcakes. You're not going to feel like working out every time. You're not going to feel like doing the mindset work. You are not going to feel like it. So stop waiting to feel like it. Stop waiting to be motivated and stop feeling guilty for not wanting it sometimes. That's okay. It's human nature to take the easy way out, the path of least resistance. And that is your autopilot habits right now. That is the easy way out. You will never want to do anything. You will never feel like you want to do it if it revolves change. Change is not easy. Change is discomfort, which as humans, like just even on a primal level, we want to completely avoid just for survival, right? So knowing that there's no excuses anymore about not starting, not reaching your desire, and there's no need to complain about why you just don't feel like it sometimes. Why can't I motivate myself? Why don't I want to do it? Why can't I get my ass off the couch? Because you're waiting to want to do it. It doesn't happen that way. The people who are mega successful in life, the people whose names are known across the world, are experts at doing what they don't want to do. That's the secret. It's not that they figured out some way to work hard. They just practiced doing what they don't want to do, and they've gotten good at it. So then they actually want to do what they don't want to do. That's some mind inception there. So, and here's the thing too. So taking that concept, right? You had teachers when you were younger. They forced you to do the homework you didn't want to do, right? You had your parents. They forced you to brush your teeth when you didn't want to do it, right? And you have your bosses forcing you to hit deadlines when you don't want to do it, right? So you have these people who you've been relying on your whole life to push you to do the things that you want to do. And when you remove them, what ends up happening? We haven't been trained well enough to do it on our own most of the time, right? And I learned this the hard way. So for those of you who don't know, I owned a gym with Coach Ryan. We owned a gym. We opened in 2017. We closed in 2020 because of COVID. When we closed, okay, I found myself being very lazy, because what I noticed was there's a big difference between being busy and being productive. The gym kept me crazy busy from 5 a.m. till 10 p.m. I was busy teaching workouts, getting my own workouts in, paperwork, emails, phone calls, chatting with clients. I was so busy, but I wasn't productive. And so when you remove the necessity or the thing keeping you accountable, right? I had to keep this business afloat to pay my bills. So when that went away, I didn't have to wake up at 5 a.m. every day. I didn't have to check my emails every day. I didn't even have to put pants on every day. You know what I mean? So when we remove these people that make us do the things that we want to do, or the things that we don't want to do, it really shows us how bad we are at forcing us to do the things we don't want to do, right? Most of the stuff that you're doing right now that you don't want to do, you're doing because there's some type of necessity, right? If I don't do this, there's a huge consequence. Like I miss a bill, I get divorced. Like there's a huge consequence that forces you to do the things you don't want to do. But in terms of health, the consequences usually don't show up till we're much older. We're achy, we're diseased, we're on medication. And by then, it's really hard to backtrack. And by then, that's usually when people get their shit together, really, right? Because they've realized that they've gone too far. But if you don't have those consequences, those tangible consequences, you usually don't do what you don't want to do. Is this making sense, ladies? So we're not experts at this task yet. We're not, because there's no necessity pushing at us, right? We had coaches in school. We had coaches at work. Our parents were coaching us. Now in health, you finally have Fit Queen as a coach. And it's our job to, number one, make sure you keep doing what you're doing. But guess what? Even when we're not looking, we teach you how to keep doing what you don't want to do, right? So we're hitting you from both sides. And that's the key here. You've never really had someone keeping you accountable to your health. Sure, you had gym in high school, which I'm sure you hated, and everybody was stinky because they're all going through puberty. And in elementary school, you went out for recess. Like you have these things that made you do the necessities. But when there's no real consequence that you can see and you're not threatened with, we have a real hard time doing what we don't want to do because we go back to our autopilot. Okay, so it's important that when we're talking about desires and actually bridging the gap, like if you want to manifest the best life possible, if you want to stop, lying to yourself or selling yourself short along the possibilities of your health and weight loss journey, like the possibilities are really endless where you can take this. If you really want to level up, okay, you have to realize that it's not about you feeling like you want to do it, right? You have the desires of what you're picturing. You're not going to feel like doing the work to get there. But that's not an excuse to be good enough or to be, my life is fine. That's not good enough, okay? So we got to work on the activation energy, okay? That's what gets the ball rolling. And so here's a really good little task to get the activation energy, to practice the activation energy, okay? So what you do is, the first decision you make when you wake up should be your activation energy. So what does that mean? The second your alarm goes off, you jump out of bed. The first decision of your day should be to do what you don't want to do. And then you set the entire tone for the rest of the day. Who has multiple alarms on their phone? Who hits snooze too much? We all do it every now and then, right? So, or who lays in bed after their alarm goes off for a little bit, right? That's another one. So, or plays or scrolls through social media or plays games until they're ready to get up. So you need to practice your activation energy, right? Because I said that was the hardest part, just getting the ball rolling. Once you're in it, you're in it. So as soon as you wake up, you have to rip the blankets off, jump out of bed. As soon as you're standing, the rest becomes easy, okay? When you have these impulses, right? These impulses like, you ever been at a wedding and you see everybody dancing and you want to join in, but then you stop because like, oh, I don't want to embarrass myself, right? Or you want to go talk to someone and tell somebody something, but then you stop yourself because like, oh, I don't want to upset anybody. So these impulses we have to do things, the good impulses, if you do not act on them within 5 seconds, you are, number one, losing the opportunity to practice your activation energy, and number two, you will never get them done. That's why when you set a time to work out and then push it off, you never get it done. You miss the activation energy window and that impulse was gone, right? We were so good at pushing down our impulses because we're afraid of ruining good enough. We're afraid of ruining fine, right? If we don't actually try to achieve better, we're not going to know how bad fine really is, right? So fine just seems normal. Fine, I can live with, right? So impulse, you have 5 seconds to act on your impulse, or 5 seconds to plan your impulse. So if you can't act on it, then you got to plan it. Oh, I really feel like working out. Then you put in your schedule. You put it in your schedule. You have to schedule your impulse or you act on it immediately. You have 5 seconds to do that, or whatever it was is gone forever until your next one. Okay? That is how you practice your activation energy. You have to feel the impulse, you have to do the action, and then the ball gets rolling. And then that is how you act on your desires. You stop suppressing things, and then you do this, and over time you build and you build and you build and you build, and that fantasy that you have in your mind of this dream life, of this, you know, oh, if only this could happen, I wish, you know, then it actually becomes true, right? Because this fantasy you have in your head right now, ladies, if there was a genie who could grant you some wishes, would you not wish that to be true and reality right now? If you could snap your fingers and have it, you would have it. So why are you settling for less than that? That makes no sense. Don't settle. If you would choose that in a split second, if it was easy, then it's worth working hard for. That's a true unfiltered desire for you. Don't filter it. Don't be afraid of it. Don't care what anybody has to say about it. You go after it, and you start by acting on your impulse, practicing your activation energy, and then slowly that will compile over time. Okay? And first and foremost, most important thing I want you to take away from this is you 90% of the time you won't feel like it. You either will not want to do it or you'll be indifferent about it. You're not going to be excited and motivated all the time, right? You're either going to be indifferent or, on the opposite, not want to do it. Okay, ladies? So quickly, let me know your takeaways in the comments. Let me see what resonated with you. Let me know how you're going to pull this away or pull these topics away. Lots of cool stuff today. I think it's really important to not be embarrassed of your desires. Okay, we all have deep desires that we don't want to say out loud because we're afraid of being judged. So a desire is true, and you're more likely to reach it when it doesn't actually sound good outside, when someone would actually judge you for it. So don't be afraid of your desires, and don't sell yourself short. You can reach them.